Welcome to How They Won. I'm your host, Bob Burns, and every week I get successful real estate professionals across North America to share their secrets of success with you. This week, I'm speaking with Ahmed Helmi, VP and Division Manager for Johnston and Daniel, a division of Royal LePage Real Estate in Toronto, Ontario. Ahmed has nearly done it all over his 17 years in the real estate business and has been successful at every turn. I really enjoyed talking to him about how his immigrant experience contributed to his success, what attracted Ahmed to the real estate business to begin with, how anyone can work hard and succeed in real estate. You may need to sleep faster, but you can do it. How the competitiveness in our business keeps us sharp, finding and working a niche or specialization to capture more than your fair share of the market, how remaining true to your values adds to your competitive edge, relationships and trust as the keys to long-term success, avoiding the most common sources of conflict with other real estate professionals, and how having the right systems can help ensure you always dot your I's and cross your T's. I think you're going to find a ton of value in this conversation. And remember, if you're finding value in How They Won, please subscribe, review, and share the podcast with your friends. I sincerely appreciate all that each of you does to spread the word about the show. Now, let's get started. This week's episode is brought to you by Leaders Edge Coaching. Full disclosure, I am a trainer and a coach with Leaders Edge, but like you, I can choose to do business with anyone, but I choose to work with Leaders Edge. Leaders Edge has the right experience, knowledge, and tools to help you take your business to the next level. Whether that means closing more transactions, or improving your work-life balance, or building a team the right way, the coaches and staff at Leaders Edge can help you achieve your goals. For more information, email coaching@howtheywon.com. That's coaching@howtheywon.com. My guest this week is a really impressive individual. He manages one of the largest and most productive real estate offices for one of the largest real estate companies in the world in the largest board of realtors in the world. But what really impresses me about this individual is that he is not one of those people who just got put in charge because he knew the right people. This guy did the work, step by step, incremental success by incremental success to advance in his career. He started out as an agent with Royal LePage 17 years ago. Then he got his broker's license. Then he became a manager for a smaller real estate office. He got involved with the board and chaired the arbitration committee for his board. He moved on to managing a bigger office, then an even bigger office. Then he became a vice president, then a division manager. Today, Ahmed Helmi is the VP and division manager for Johnston and Daniel, a division of Royal LePage Real Estate in Toronto, Ontario. Ahmed has also just joined Leaders Edge Training as a coach. So, Ahmed, thanks so much for coming on the show. I am totally thrilled that you've agreed to spend some time with us.
Bob, I'm more thrilled than you to be here. Honestly, I really appreciate the intro. You made me sound like some amazing guy. Thank you.
Well, it's easy when you have a background like yours. It's so impressive. So folks listening, we'll get into the business side of the discussion in just a minute, but I want to start by letting you get to know a little bit more about Ahmed, the person. So Ahmed, when we were together in Florida a couple weeks ago, you mentioned that scuba diving is something you like to do in your free time. Where's your favorite place to dive?
I would say the Red Sea. By far, the Red Sea is just absolutely amazing. Now, I haven't been everywhere. I'm hopefully will be going to Thailand later on this year, and that's a place where diving is phenomenal as well, and I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, the Red Sea is one of my favorite places. But then again, you know, I'm a little biased because of the fact that I am originally from there. I was born in Egypt, so because of that, I have a tendency to go back and. But then again, I only, for the most part, go back so I can get into the water and do some diving in the Red Sea. That's one of my favorite places of all time. Yeah, for sure.
That's interesting. And I want to ask you more about where you're from, but I don't know much about diving. I've gone snorkeling before, but never scuba diving. It's on my bucket list of things to learn. But what is it about the Red Sea that is so special when you're under the water?
So before I tell you about the Red Sea and under the water, I'll tell you that sharks actually like to eat snorkelers. Okay, just so that you know, they don't usually go after. The sharks will. You won't hear about a shark going after a diver, but you hear about sharks eating, people that are floating on the top. So, word of advice. Take up some scuba diving.
Thanks for that. I'll really remember that the next time I'm floating around the top of the water. Thanks, Ahmed.
Yeah, because you look like a seal. So they kind of like, I'm going to go up and take a bite of this guy. I've never had any issues with sharks. I love sharks. They are just magnificent. And I love being in the water. I can state I've taught scuba diving for many years as well. My son and I started off, as a matter of fact, we actually we did our open water portion in Florida. We were in Pensacola, Florida. My son was 9 years old and he is now 31. So you can do the math. It's been quite a while that we've been diving, and I've been teaching and training diving. Again, one of those things that you get into, you love it, and then you just keep. I'm a learner. I love learning. I love doing more, and the more I see that I like something, the more I want to get into it. So I've done. I was actually coaching divers and training divers right up to the master level. So people that want to train and learn to be trainers, that's one of the things that I was doing. It's incredible. It's a feeling like no other. It's like jumping from an airplane and you're all by yourself. It's kind of the same thing.
That's really interesting to me. So maybe you've just moved diving up on my bucket list a couple notches, but you didn't answer my question about the Red Sea. What about the Red Sea is different compared to other places that you've dived?
The abundance of fish, the abundance of sea life, the abundance of corals, the amount of there's not a spot along the coast of the Red Sea that you would not see corals and you would not see sea life. So no matter where it is, you just grab a tank, grab a BCD, jump in the water, and you will see tons of stuff everywhere you go.
That sounds amazing. And that feeling of kind of being by yourself is something that I've always kind of been drawn to in various adventures in my life. So I want to talk a little bit more about your experience in coming to Canada. So you came from Egypt, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I was 12 when I moved to Canada.
So you were 12 when your family moved to Canada. What was it like as a 12-year-old to move halfway around the world, new country, new language, certainly different climate, different people? You had to relearn everything. What was that like as a 12-year-old?
It was surreal, really. When we first went to the Canadian embassy to be interviewed, my dad had already moved to Canada, and my mom and dad had been separated since I was born. So we were kind of living in different circumstances. And I went to the Canadian embassy to be interviewed at 11 years old. And I remember clearly the gentleman who spoke to us was talking about hockey. And I did not know what the hell hockey was at the time. Hockey, what is that? I'd never heard of it ever. So he was asking me if I would play hockey. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't speak any English at the time, so English was something that was very foreign to me. I did not go to, my sister had gone to an English school, so she learned some, but for me, it was something that was totally foreign. As you know, Arabic is written from the right to the left. We open books from the right, not from the left, and so on. And so it was, it was totally different. You come to Canada, you learn very quickly, and you assimilate. So it's been an incredible journey, I would say.
Do you think that being an immigrant gives you an advantage in business? I see so many immigrants running successful businesses. I got to think, I should do the research on this, but I got to think as a percentage, there are a higher percentage of immigrant business owners than native business owners. And I wonder if there's something to that. What are your thoughts on that?
So in Canada, I would say, everybody is an immigrant pretty well. We all came just at different times. There's a lot of drive, definitely for an immigrant. I came from very modest beginnings. I mean, I did everything you can possibly imagine. You probably have seen my resume only partial, but I also started when I put myself through school. I was a little silly. I got married at 19 years old, and so I had to put myself through school, literally. So I used to work midnight to 8 in the morning. And then from 8 in the morning, I would go to college, and I would be in college all day. Then I would come home, sleep a few hours, get up again and go to school, go to work, and then from work, go to school and all that sort of thing. So you learn to do whatever you can in order to succeed. And I think it's the drive. Part of what you have in your life. Now, there are those that are driven, and there are those that just kind of coast along. And I think for the most part, it doesn't matter what your background is, doesn't matter where you come from. I think it's all about drive.
And that's what I love about the real estate business is you don't have to be a brilliant genius. You don't have to be rich, but you do have to get up every day and outwork everyone else. And we'll talk more about that in a minute, but I'm curious, before you got into the real estate business, you had a couple of other successful businesses that you had started. What were you doing before real estate, and what was it about real estate that made you want to shift careers?
So you probably noticed that out of my resume and so on, that I actually studied mechanical engineering in school, which is what I studied initially before I got into business. And so while I was going to school, and like I mentioned, I used to work, I had to work in order to put myself through school. So in the summertime, I used to do different things in order to work in the daytime rather than working at nighttime, because I used to work midnight to 8 in the morning every day to put myself through school. So when the summer came, I always looked for something different to do that I can do. So one of the jobs I did was to work for Seneca College for the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovations. And we helped companies to increase their productivity, to improve their flow, and that sort of thing. So one of the places that I worked for a company that needed some assistance with their manufacturing processes. So we improved manufacturing process for that company. The owner was impressed with my work. He offered me to work for him. And that was just before my last year in college. And so I, of course, said, thank you very much, but I still have a year to go and I'll have to do this. I finished my last year. I graduated with an award from a company called Canada Packers at the time. And they offered me an opportunity to work with them. Canada Packers is a huge company. It is now down, they've sold all their divisions. It's down to what is called Maple Leaf Foods. And that's a large enough company. I mean, so anyways, I worked with Canada Packers for a while because they did offer me an opportunity to work with them in management. And so I went from mechanical engineering directly into management, junior manager. Worked for them for a while, started taking business courses because that's when I went to York University to take business. And then, felt that I was just a number. My work was done within a couple of hours in the morning. And the rest of the day, you had to kind of make do with what you have and figure out something else to do. So I ended up basically getting bored very quickly. I was doing a lot of different things, did some projects, and it just got to the point where I got bored. So I took the opportunity and moved to go and work for the company that had already, been giving me an opportunity to work in the manufacturing. And so I went from there to work with that particular company. It was a leather manufacturing company, leather goods manufacturing company. And I worked there to run their entire operation in terms of the manufacturing part of the operation. So worked there. Then I decided, well, it's such a small company. I can't really grow after 2 years. So I decided to do something different. Well, what did I know how to do? My father, when he first came to Canada, he worked as a cleaner in a cleaning company. And so I learned how to use machines. I learned how to do many things that had to do with cleaning. So I knew mechanical engineering, I knew cleaning, and I thought, well, I can open up a cleaning company. And so I did. I started a cleaning company, and I had somebody do some telemarketing for me and get appointments. I went out and did the sales and started the company. And I ran that company for 14 and a half years before I finally decided to sell it. And that was when I got into real estate.
That's really cool. So the progression, really the common theme that I heard through your progression, Ahmed, is you're used to being busy. You're used to having a lot of new things constantly, work all night, study all day, sleep a little bit, rinse, repeat, do it over and over and over again. Arnold Schwarzenegger describes his immigrant experience very similarly, that, he had big goals and he didn't have a lot of time for sleep. So Arnold's advice is to everybody who thinks you need to sleep 8 hours a night is sleep faster. So it sounds like you ascribe to the same sleep faster philosophy. So you got into real estate after running a couple of successful businesses. I happen to believe that in terms of competitiveness, there is nothing like if you were comparing businesses from a competitiveness and sales standpoint, I think real estate is like a drag race. It is just raw competitiveness. Can I outwork? Can I out hustle everybody else just on the power of my knowledge and personality? So coming into real estate from a different type of business and a different type of background, what was it like to start over really? And start from scratch and start building this real estate business that I think maybe was a little more competitive than the environments you came from?
Absolutely. Real estate is extremely competitive, especially in our marketplace. We've got 53,000 realtors in our real estate board in an area, the Greater Toronto area is about 5 to 6 million people, and that's an incredibly huge piece of real estate. And we've got more than 53,000 realtors in our main board, the Toronto Real Estate Board. So yeah, it's extremely competitive. I would say that it was not simple to move into the real estate sales. I didn't have proper training at the time. I think when you first start, this is simply the type of business that you're on your own. You're absolutely totally on your own unless you get an incredible manager who is really going to assist in getting you moving. With my business background, I found it easier to get into this business simply because I didn't need the assistance or the hand holding like most people do. I just went out there and started doing things. I found that there was a couple of niches in the marketplace that naturally just came to me. Again, talking from the point of view of running your own business and understanding what business is like, being able to put together business plans and so forth. So when I decided to get into real estate, I was running my own business. And I decided to sell that business. So I placed ads in some of the commercial real estate print that we have here, mostly magazines for commercial real estate. And I started getting phone calls that people were saying, they would recognize my name as an Egyptian name. And they look at my face, as we realtors love to show our faces everywhere. It's part of our branding. And they would say, okay, you look like an Egyptian guy. Do you speak Arabic? And I was like, yeah, I do. And so definitely there was a niche there. So I started working that niche, and I worked the Arabic speaking community. And I found that worked very well for me to get started. The other thing is understanding business, being able to work in the commercial field. And a lot of realtors shy away from the commercial field, especially when we're talking about small commercial, anything up to $10 million or so. The big brokerage houses don't really care about dealing with it as much, but and the smaller individuals don't really know how to handle it and would rather stay away from it because it's just scary for them. So I found definitely a couple of niche areas where it helped me along, and then from there I learned quite a bit about real estate. It was phenomenal getting started in this business.
I think what you said about finding your niche or a couple of niches is really important. I did the math while you were speaking. So 53,000 realtors in your board, 5 million people in your market. That's about 94 people per realtor. And if people move on average once every 10 years, that's not enough transactions to make a living if you just divided it evenly. So from pure arithmetic alone, we would be well served to find a specialization, find a niche or two, and build on that to capture a much greater than our fair share of the market. That's been something I've always taught is how do I help people get more than their fair share of the real estate pie? And it sounds like for your business, Ahmed, it was finding a couple of those niches and building on it.
Absolutely. It came natural, and I just found myself moving towards that. Obviously, residential is a huge area, and is the primary part of our business here. However, most people, as you mentioned, in terms of the real estate board, most people in the real estate board, I'd say about 60% do less than one deal a year.
So that leaves a lot of room for folks that know how to work and want to hustle and want to find an angle. But I want to get back to this whole niche concept for a second, because Toronto is incredibly diverse. You are certainly not the only Egyptian Arabic speaking realtor in Toronto. So you had to have done something in addition to just being who you are to stand out. What was that?
Professionalism, honesty, integrity, being able to just people, once they work with you once, you're able to infiltrate and move forward. And then it becomes normally just the only way that you can improve in this business and do better in this business is not to be transactional. It's about working the relationship building, and especially in the ethnic communities. Once people start to get to know you, you become the go-to guy. It doesn't matter who else is selling real estate. The relationship becomes very, very strong, and it doesn't become a transaction anymore. It's much more than that. But running your business as a business is really, really important.
So running your business as a business and focusing on that relationship. Now, I want to zero in on that whole relationship thing that you said, because right now, and for the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk in our business about disruptors and disintermediaries and dis other things. I happen to believe that you can't, if the relationship is the core of our business, that all of the rest of this stuff, all of this technology and all of this lead generation stuff and all of these iBuyers and all of these new insert buzzword here things will not be able to displace us at the center of the real estate transaction. So as a coach and as a manager of real estate agents, how do you help your agents really, really zero in and focus on that customer service aspect, that relationship thing? Because those two things are a lot, they're kind of boring when you talk about them. They're not, buying zip codes on Zillow. They're not the next great, automatic drip campaign or social media ads. It's kind of boring to focus on relationships. That's been the same for the last 150 years of real estate. How do you get your agents to focus on the boring stuff that's going to allow them to make a great living in this business over the course of a long time?
So I don't actually think it's boring. I think it's phenomenal. The relationship stuff. I mean that is the bloodline of our business is the relationship, and all you need to do is be genuine and be yourself and work with people that you can connect with. And sometimes we don't connect with everybody. Sometimes we walk into a situation and we just can't mesh. There's something there that people just don't connect. And if that's the case, walk away. You don't have to work with everybody, but you can work with people that you choose to work with. And that's the beauty of our business too, is the fact that you get to choose who you work with. And relationship building is not something that you have to really work hard on, but you have to work consistently on. And being genuine, I mean, think about it. In our marketplace, the average home, we'll say on like overall in the GTA, the average home is about $1 million. In my market, like in our very small area where we work in the central Toronto, averages between, we'll say about $3 million in our marketplace. But really the average overall for the general greater Toronto area, you're looking at about $1 million. Well, am I going to give that $1 million home to somebody I don't trust to sell for me? $1 million home, commissions are not significant here in our marketplace. I know that in the U.S., typically they're charging, and we're not going to talk about exact or averages or so on, but we charge about 2.5%. To sell a property. It's about 5% normally thereabouts. Some charge more, some charge less because we have competition. But really, you're making $25,000 on a transaction. How can you pay somebody $50,000 to sell your home and on both ends when you can't trust them? It has to start with trust. And I know that the National Association of Realtors will tell you the number one thing that works, that is important to any seller or buyer is to be able to trust the realtor. And the only way trust comes is by building a relationship. And our realtors look at relationship building. Again, we all teach. You got to run a business. You got to have a CRM. The CRM has to be able to help you connect with your clients. You have to get up every morning. You got to send the cards, around Christmas. You got to start to send the cards for Hanukkah if that's your clientele or your friends. You got to send stuff around Eid if you're in the Muslim community. You got to be out there to build that relationship, and it's really easy. All you have to do is just be good to people, and just be a normal, friendly person. You don't have to be fake. It's really important that it's genuine. And I think the genuine part comes out. It just makes you connect and builds that trust. And trust is the most important thing in my business, I think.
You said so many really important things there, and I can hear people hitting the rewind button now as they listen to catch some of the stuff that you just shared. The big takeaway that I got from what you just said is a lot of agents are sometimes unhappy with their business. They've got clients they don't really like working with, and they get up every day and it's stressful and it's hard to push forward and go to work. It probably means, if you're feeling that way about your business, it probably means that you should redouble your efforts to focus on the relationships and focus on finding more people like you, where you can be yourself, where you can be genuine, where you can strip away the layers and go to work every day and just have fun hanging out with people that you like and you care about and you connect with on the same level. If you're not doing that every day, you're going to be forever stuck on this treadmill of paying hundreds or thousands of dollars for various zip codes and so forth and all of these websites. You're going to be stuck on that treadmill forever, paying to work with business that you really don't love, but you feel like you have to because you're not investing consistently, as you said, Ahmed, consistently in the relationships that you have. So what you just said is fantastic advice, and I hope people rewind and take a few notes about what you just shared. Awesome stuff.
I agree. I honestly feel that once you build relationships, you've got a business for life.
What a great opportunity. That's why you got to love real estate. So I want to kind of turn the page a little bit. I think we've made our point on the relationship trust factor. Now, I mentioned in your introduction that you served on the arbitration panel for the Toronto Board of Realtors. And with 53,000 plus members, I'm guessing there were plenty of arbitrations and mediations and so forth to keep you busy. From your time serving on that panel, what were some of the biggest takeaways for you? What did you learn, and how have you incorporated those lessons into your business?
So we learn a lot from our work that we do for the real estate boards and for some of the other, all the volunteer organizations that we we volunteer for, whether you sit on a board of directors or you do mediations or arbitrations. But I'll tell you the one thing take away for sure from the arbitration is that it's tough working with buyers without contracts. Most of our issues that happen typically is one realtor saying, hold on a second, I worked with this buyer, I did all this stuff, and then they walked into an open house or they've seen this other property, and the other realtor kind of induced them, let's say, into purchasing through the listing agent, and that money belongs to me. I've worked hard and I want that money. So initially it used to be with the Toronto Real Estate Board that the person who signs the agreement of purchase and sale, so when you procure that particular contract, then the money's yours. Well, not so. There are a lot of different issues. You have to look at intent. You have to look at did the realtor know or ought the realtor have known that they were, this buyer was working with someone else. So you have to ask the questions. So we've actually altered our contracts, our buyer agency contracts, to ensure that the questions are being asked, and that to have the buyer now initial saying that they're not working with another realtor, that they have not worked with another realtor prior to signing this agreement. And most of the time it's finding out if you have to dig and dig and dig and find out if the realtor had asked the right questions about the contract and the existence of a previous contract before they start working with the buyer. So there've been instances where we've taken money that was already earned or paid, I should say, to one realtor. Sometimes it's $60,000 that was paid as a commission for that particular contract. And we've decided that, yes, there was enough reason to see that perhaps that the realtor could have done better. And the original contract that was signed with the first realtor had to be honored. And so we take money from the one realtor and then give it to the other. Unfortunately, not everybody becomes a happy person, but it teaches people lessons very, very, very quickly. You learn a lot about paperwork and contract laws.
A lot about that. And I think that's really smart for people to refocus on dotting the I's and crossing the T's. That is just a heartbreaking lesson to learn when that much money is at stake and you've done some of the work. And to have, it's just, I don't want to get into the ins and outs, and everybody's board is different, and you got to check with your management and with your legal counsel and all of that local stuff to get advice. But the big thing that I take away from what you just said is be diligent, have the hard conversations, do your paperwork, dot your I's, cross your T's. It's when you start cutting corners or taking shortcuts or avoiding some of those uncomfortable or more difficult conversations that down the line can cause you to run into trouble. So
absolutely,
great
having systems is really important. If your system already exists and it says that I'm going to go through asking these questions, then that's part of your system. And if you prove that, then you can easily show that you've done everything that you can do in terms of due diligence. So.
Makes sense. Now we've been going for about half an hour or so, and I'd like to wrap up the conversation. You've been very generous with your time, Ahmed, but I do want to end with one final question, and that is, you've been doing this a long time. You've been very, very successful at every stage of the game, whether it was in sales as a salesperson, as a manager, as a recruiter, as a more senior executive in an organization. What's one piece of advice that you'd like to share with everybody listening? And before you answer, let me give you an idea. The folks listening to this are real estate agents. They're real estate assistants, they're real estate managers, they're real estate executives from all over North America, different territories, different markets. It's really, really neat to watch the reporting on the podcast and see the folks that are tuning in and getting advice. So your advice has to be pretty broad, but what's one piece of advice that you'd like to share with everybody listening that has contributed to your success in this industry?
There's no magic pill. There really is no magic pill. Bottom line is you have to work hard. You have to be driven. You have to get up early. If you want to do well, you wake up before everybody else and get the work done. It's important that you work on your business just as much as you work in your business. Working in a business is very important. Working on your business is just as important because they're going in this business. It's cyclical, and when the cycle is down, you need to continue to keep your. If you're talking to realtors, the realtors really need to continue to keep their eyes on the basics. There's really no magic pill. The basics is where it's at. You're still a salesperson. You still need to do lead gen. You still need to foster your clientele. Otherwise, it becomes a transactional business, and that's not what we're in. So build relationships, wake up early, work on your business. That's most importantly in this business, and keep your eyes focused on the basics.
That is fantastic advice, and I always need to be reminded of that. And I think I'm like everybody else. So that's really good advice. We'll end with that. Ahmed Helmi with Johnston and Daniel, a division of Royal LePage Real Estate in Toronto, Ontario. Thanks so much for your time, and thanks so much for all of the insights and advice and information you shared with us today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Bob. It's been awesome. Thank you.